All right, guys, I want to talk to you today about our next lesson topic, which is the quadratic formula. Our essential question today is how can I use the quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations? Our goal today is that we can take any quadratic that we see that's in standard form, and we can use the quadratic formula to help solve that quadratic to figure out where on the x-axis that graph is going to touch. So I want you to first take a look here at the quadratic formula, and then right next to it we'll also have the standard form. So the quadratic formula reads like this: x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, and all of that is divided by 2 times a. All right, our a, our b, and our c come from the standard form of a quadratic equation. Again, standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. So we're going to steal the numbers in those specific spots, and we're going to use those in the quadratic formula to find out our solution. So we're going to start off with a couple of examples. I've got two here. We'll start with the one on the left. It's x squared plus 7x plus 6. If you've noticed, I've added a 1 here. I like to do that to remind myself that it means 1x squared. You don't have to do that, but it is a good reminder as you're working through the quadratic formula that x squared means 1x squared. And if you look, our equation is equal to 0, as is our other equation in example 2. All right, so I'm going to take this equation right here, and I'm going to put it in using the quadratic formula. So the first thing I'm going to do is the opposite of b. Well, the opposite of 7 is negative 7 plus or minus the square root of, then we're going to take b squared. I put it in parentheses, so 7 squared, and that's just in case, really it's for those times that b is a negative number, but I do it just out of habit, minus 4, and again I do a and c in parentheses as well to remind myself that I am pulling those from my equation. So 4 times 1 times 6, so a and then c, and then all of that is divided by 2 times a, which again is 1. All right, now it's great for us to write it like this, but the truth is we can't put it in our calculator like this because of our plus minus symbol. So when we go to putting it in our calculator, what we need to do is write it 2 ways and then solve it both ways. So the first time we're going to solve it as an addition problem. So negative 7 plus 7 squared minus 4 times 1 times 6. All of that under the square root divided by 2 times 1. All right, now the second time that I solve, I want to write it as a minus. So negative 7 minus the square root of 7 squared minus 4 times 1 times 6. And all of that will be divided by 2 times 1. Now, this is the point where you're going to want to get a calculator out if you have a graphing calculator, or you'd want to go to a website like mathpapa.com where they have an algebra calculator, and then you would want to type this in. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and type in my problem. I'm going to start out with a fraction, then I'm going to go ahead and type in my problem. Okay, the solution here is going to be negative 1. All right, now if you've got a graphing calculator, once you've typed it in, you can do kind of a copy and paste, or you can change that plus sign to a minus sign. And then your second solution is negative 6. All right, now I'm actually going to change this second example a little bit. I'm actually going to keep it, I'm going to make it equal to 1 so I can show you what happens when our quadratic is not equal to 0. If our quadratic is not equal to 0, the first thing I need to do is I need to go ahead and move anything that's on the other side of the equal sign to the side where my x squared is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this 1 to the other side by subtracting 1 from both sides of my equation to keep it balanced. Okay, we all know that 1 minus 1 zeroes out, so we're left with 0. And then I'm going to rewrite 4x squared minus 5x, but now it's minus 3. All right, now I've got my quadratic in standard form, a, b, and c. So I'm going to go to my quadratic formula. So x equals, okay, the opposite of b, so we have negative 5, so the opposite is 5 plus or minus the square root of, now our b here is negative 5, so we definitely want to put that in parentheses. If we don't, we'll get an error and it won't allow us to calculate it because it'll give us a non-real calculation. So negative 5 in parentheses squared minus 4 times a, well in this case a is 4, so 4 times 4 times c, which is negative 3. So I'm just pulling those numbers and plugging them in where they go in the formula. Okay, all of that divided by 2 times a, which in this case is 4. All right, and then again, remember that when you put this in your calculator, you're going to want to put one time the problem as an addition problem. The second time you want to write it as a subtraction problem. All right, so I go to my calculator. I'm going to type in my information. And it's really important that you put a minus here, not a negative. As you're typing that into the calculator, that you're using minus, not a negative symbol, because that'll change the answer and again will make it a calculation that won't work. All right, when I do the plus, my x is equal to 1.693. I'm going to round that or approximate it to 1.69. That's accurate enough for what I need. Okay, again, I'm going to redo it, but I'm going to this time do it with the minus. And this time, x equals a negative 0.443. And again, I'm going to approximate that to a negative 0.44 or 44 hundredths. So in this case, my answer is 1 and 69 hundredths and 0 and 44 hundredths, or a negative 44 hundredths. So that's two equations that have been solved. All right, I'm going to show you one more example just to make sure you have several options to look at. So this last one, we've got 3x squared, and it equals a negative 6x plus 4. All right, now as you can see, the only thing that's on this side is x squared, and then the rest of my quadratic is on the wrong side. So I need to move both the negative 6x and the positive 4 to the other side. So I'm going to add 6x, and I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. Okay, and if I need to, I can delineate my line here. When I do that, I get a 0 pair here and a 0 pair here. So now when I rewrite, I get 3x squared plus 6x minus 4, and all of that is equal to 0. All right, so I'm going to start with my formula. The opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 6 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is negative 4. All of that is divided by 2 times a, which is 3. All right, so again, opposite of b, plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c divided by 2a. All right, now I'm going to do the same thing I've done before. I'm going to put that in my calculator, and I'm going to find my answer. Okay, I've got x equals 0.5275525, and that's kind of how my calculator stopped going. Again, I'm going to round that to the nearest hundredth, so that's going to be 0.53. And then again, I'm going to calculate that with a minus after I've done plus. So I'm going to change that to a minus. And then this time, x equals a negative 2.52753. And I'm going to approximate that to a negative 2.53, rounding to the nearest hundredth. So my two solutions are 53 hundredths and a negative 2 and 53 hundredths. And that's the solution to that one.